This golden girl is a symbol of suffering. She represents the young women from the Korean peninsula who were forced to serve as sex slaves or comfort women for the Japanese army during World War II. This statue is the source of an ongoing diplomatic dispute over wartime atrocities, driving Japan to temporarily recall its ambassador to South Korea. When South Korean activists installed this statue outside the Japanese consulate in Busan late last year, they were sending a message to both governments. The activists were not satisfied with a landmark 2015 apology deal struck over the comfort women issue. It was meant to improve political ties between the two major Asian allies, who had long grappled with how to address Japan's colonial rule of the Korean peninsula. Japan's government promised to pay $8.5 million to care for the surviving comfort women. And on behalf of Japan, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expressed his most sincere apologies and remorse to all the women who underwent immeasurable and painful experiences as comfort women. Both sides said the issue was finally and irreversibly resolved. But for many South Koreans, and for some of the survivors, the terms of the deal were unacceptable.
공식적인 사죄와 법적인 배상, 기가 먹었으면
creating the divide between the politicians and the people. Both governments say they want to look to the future. Is that realistic when parts of society demand to remember the past? Natalie Pohanen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Sung-Yoon Lee in Medford, Massachusetts. He's the Kim Koo-Korea Foundation Professor of Korean Studies at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. And from Tokyo, Michael Yeon. He's an author and journalist who has served in the U.S. Special Forces and has been outspoken on the issue of comfort women. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Michael, what is wrong with commemorating and honoring those women who were raped in a very dark period in global history?
Well, the vast majority of the allegations are completely false. There were a few actual sex slaves, for instance, down in Java. Those were prosecuted mostly by Japanese, and the rest were prosecuted in about 1946. I've researched this myself in 11 countries. It has strategic implications, as you see. Just last week,
Sure.
Japan
Michael,
recalled
hold on for a
its
second.
ambassador.
You've researched this on your own for 2 years, but we're talking of a sort of global historical collective consensus that this happened, and it happened at the scale at which it was claimed, almost like the Holocaust. I mean, and no disrespect to you, but you sound in many ways the equivalent of a Holocaust denier, because then if this didn't happen, right, why did Shinzo Abe apologize? Why did they pay that money, which was the equivalent of about $9 million then in 2015? Why did they draw a line in the sand if this didn't happen?
Those are good questions, along with the Kono statement as well. I'm certainly not a Holocaust denier. I lived in Europe for 6 years. There's enough evidence of the Holocaust to fill the Astrodome. That's an absolute fact that occurred. However, popular consensus is not evidence. Mass hysteria, in some cases, there's a vast well of hatred for Japanese among some Koreans and Chinese.
Professor Lee, Michael says there's a vast well of hatred towards the Japanese. That's where this comes from. It doesn't come from anywhere else. What do you think, Professor Lee?
Well, there is strong lingering anti-Japanese sentiment pervasive through China and both Koreas, North Korea and South Korea. And the reason is because Japan's colonial occupation of the Korean peninsula in the first half of the 20th century was in many ways uniquely cruel and oppressive. Japanese atrocities in China are bigger on just the scale and the gravity of massacres of civilians. I don't know why we are debating the veracity of the existence of Japanese state-sponsored military brothels, sexual slavery, more than 25 years after documents in the Japanese Defense Agency library were unearthed for the world by a Japanese scholar, Professor Yoshimi, which led to the Japanese government's official apology and admission of both direct and indirect involvement in this vast crime against humanity in post-2002 parlance, international world order. So I'm a little puzzled why there is still lingering skepticism by some people.
Professor Lee, looking within South Korea, might there be an argument that the political vacuum in South Korea is sort of being exploited, particularly by the left within South Korea, in order to create a fuss out of this right now and to deliberately provoke the Japanese?
Yes, the political left in South Korea are very good at fanning the flames of anti-Japanese sentiment. Again, it is regrettable, but those sentiments are deeply embedded in Korea, and that is not helpful to Korea-Japan relations and the US-led alliance structure in the region. There is a political power vacuum, chaos in South Korean political landscape right now. It remains to be seen when the next presidential election exactly will take place this year. And the left right now, it's their race to lose because there is such strong disdain and antipathy toward the current president who's been suspended from office, impeached by the parliament. So I think we can expect the left to continue to manipulate for political reasons this presence of skepticism and anti-Japanese sentiment.
And Michael, where you are, does Shinzo Abe need to use this and maybe overreact a little bit to appeal to his conservative base over there?
Well, I thought it was a mistake to apologize for something that didn't happen. Now, to be clear, Professor Lee is correct. There was a Ianfu system, which means comfort women system. That's well known. Everybody's admitted to that. There's nothing to hide, actually. The United States did the same in Hawaii and other places. But that was prostitution. I would like to ask, actually, Professor Lee, what he thinks about the 2007 IWG final report to Congress.
What is that? I'm not aware of it. What is it? Because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here. What is it? Tell me.
Well, it's a study that cost about the United States taxpayers about $30 million to make, and it took about 6 years to do it. And one of the things that they were looking for specifically was evidence of the allegations of sex slavery. They didn't find it.
Okay, Professor Lee, Michael's insistent on sort of questioning the very premise of all of this. Do you want to have a go at that?
There are very few academic or government-sponsored research reports that are perfect. Many imperfections are found in the 9/11 report. That does not mean that 9/11 did not take place. For the sake of our viewers, I'd just like to mention 2 or 3 examples of documented evidence of state-sponsored military sexual slavery. Thanks to the internet, you can all, just check them out on the web. Japanese National Archive under the section Center for Asian Historical Research, file code CO4120263400. You'll find documents carrying the telling title of, say, recruitment of women for military comfort stations. That would be a document, a military document from March 1938, which states that the armies in the field, the Japanese armies in the field, will fully control the recruit of women in close cooperation with the military police or the local police force in those areas. And there are many others. A chief of staff of China North Area Army in July 1938 wrote that due to the prevalency of Japanese troops behaving very badly, raping local women, setting up, quote, military facilities for sexual comfort is of great importance. Then there's a Japanese War Ministry report that outlines how many comfort stations there were in China, Southeast Asia, South Sea, 400, not counting 200 or more in Okinawa, Philippines, Burma. So there is a preponderance of evidence of Japanese government involvement in establishing, managing these facilities, and coercing women to serve in these hellholes.
Okay, that's quite powerfully put, and I'm going to check out those links myself. I hope you do as a viewer.
Again, nobody has denied that there were comfort women stations. That's a well-known fact. That is a fact, but they were not sex slaves.
Okay.
They were prostitutes. We see information war going on. I call it museum warfare. They're helping to organize museums in various countries that show Japanese atrocities here and there. It's not to say that there was no war crimes. Certainly, Japanese committed war crimes. There's no question about it. But whether 200,000 were kidnapped, that's ridiculous.
Okay.
So China is using this as a part of its program.
You made your point,
They're
Michael.
trying to divide up.
Sorry, man. We are running out of time. I want to go to Professor Lee for a final comment here. Is this as bad as the 2012 spat, in your opinion, Professor Lee? And might the two countries come out of this okay, with it being just a minor blip?
Well, both Japan and South Korea have a common security threat, a common enemy, if you will, in North Korea. And North Korea's nuclear threat has been increasing quite rapidly over the past few years. So I think the bilateral relationship will remain close, but also a little unsteady, tense at times. Things will get worse. And one reason is because the South Korean government, in my humble estimation, really shot itself in the foot by agreeing to these unfavorable terms on December 28, 2015, even declaring that the issue is now final and irreversible. Again, what we're talking about is, in modern parlance, vast crimes against humanity. And such crimes cannot ever be final and irreversible, declared by any government. They merit remembering, teaching, commemoration by scholars and students forever.
Okay, Professor Lee and Michael Yon, unfortunately, we are out of time. Good to have you on the program. Thanks so much.